Hey everybody, this is Wes from Fundamental Games. Going to do a quick how to play video for Hunted, Wode Ridge. Now this game is going live on Kickstarter February 23rd by Gabe Barrett of Barrett Publishing, and I had fun importing it and playing it on Tabletop Simulator, and I thought I'd share it with you. I have played the other Hunted games and enjoy those, and that's why I knew I'd have some fun with this one also. So how do you play Hunted Wode Ridge? Well, first off, you have to set up the game. And I have it all set up here just like it's outlined in the instruction book created for the game. So you can see here there are cards for allies, items, trouble cards, evidence cards, tokens, a location stack, your hunted deck, which is kind of the core of the game, your 5 team members, which are basically your group of kids in the 80s trying to solve this situation of strange circumstances in the town of Wode Ridge. And then you have a player board with some health, some time, and some energy dice. So, and then accompanying this game is an adventure booklet that helps you get a bit more immersed in the world and have some special experiences. All right, so how do you play Hunted? First off, you set up your player board and you start with 10 health, 20 time, and 12 energy dice, all of which will be used. They're limited resources. If you ever run out of health or time, you lose the game. If you run out of dice, you're probably going to lose the game unless you can find a way to replenish them, because some of the bad guys in this game will keep hurting you if you don't have energy. You do have a team: Danny, Jayla, Celia, Jack, and their little robot Marty. Each one of them has a special power which can be activated once, and then you have to flip them over. Once they're flipped over, they cannot be used until you regroup, and then you may be able to get them back and use them for future times. But each one of these gives you a single use option, except for Marty. He gives you 3 tokens, so you almost get to use them 3 times, or use up his tokens. And so these are all a benefit to the game, and it's a neat way to show how each of these team members contributes to the solution of the game. You know, Danny's really good at navigating, Celia is good at finding clues, Jack is good at solving problems, Jayla is good at finding items, and Marty's an overall good robot. All right, so that is that. The main premise of the deck is built around the hunted mechanic, and that's found in the other Hunted games. The peculiar thing about this game is there is an other side, so there's 2 sides to every card, giving you twice as much fun and options as you might in a normal game. And the way the hunted mechanic works is when you are flipping and putting cards into the hunted row, each of the cards kind of bounces off one another in different ways. So if you look at any individual card, in order to accomplish or acquire a card, you have to pay the cost, and the cost is in the bottom right, represented by different icons. So this is a compass icon, this is a befriend icon. There's plenty of other cards in the game that will have an impact, and each of the cards relies on one another to basically acquire or accomplish. So for example, if I wanted to acquire discovery, I could use 2 compass icons in order to acquire the icons on the top right, or whatever the benefit is in the top right. In this case, it would be to acquire 2 question marks, which are evidence cards, critical to progressing in the game. The second thing a card is used for is as a resource. So on the left-hand side in white are icons. This one has a kind of a map icon. This one has a clue icon. This dog has a compass icon. So you can use each card for 1 icon to help purchase or pay for the cost of other cards. In some cards have trouble. So there are trouble cards in both the main deck and the other side, and those are represented by pink bells. And they're not really a cost as opposed to a negative reaction if you have too many pink bells in your row. So that's one of the cool things about the Hunted deck, is these 2 pink bells will automatically trigger trouble, which will force me to discard this row, and I have to deal with the trouble that I face. Usually it's FBI agents or parents. So in this case, I would have to, before I can progress any further in the game, I would have to deal with these FBI agents. Now you do that by finding a way to acquire that icon. So if I had Marty, I might be able to use this fist token permanently, and I'd automatically defeat the FBI agent. If I didn't have that, I would have to use my energy dice, and I get to pick how many dice I want to roll. Maybe I want to roll 3 dice in an effort to get that fist icon. And you'll see on these dice, the fist icon is there. And so if I roll that, it's going to help me defeat the FBI agent. So I pick however many dice I want to roll, I'd roll them. If I get a star, that is a wild icon, which represents any icon I want. So in this case, the fist. Or if I roll the fist, I would defeat the FBI agent. But then those dice are used, so I have to be cautious how much I do that. FBI agent would be discarded, and then I could continue on through my hunted deck, my hunted mechanic again. So maybe the next place I go to is, if I find a location, I actually have to go there and trigger it right away. So in this case, I'm going to the cemetery, and then I may lose a time to draw the bottom 3 cards, discard one, put one on top of the deck, put one on the bottom of the deck, and I'm now at the cemetery. And that might not sound like a big deal, but there will be effects in the game when you fill in your evidence row where you will have to refer to your adventure book and see what happens as a result of being at the cemetery at that particular time. But in this case, I would be able to choose to lose a time, and then I could do this effect. I would look at 3 cards, discard one, put one on top of the deck. So it gives me some deck manipulation by being at the cemetery. I'm not going to do that, just thought I would share that. It's how. All right, maybe we'll share a couple other mechanics in the game so you can see how those work. So let's say we were looking at these cards here. If I were to want to get some evidence, so this card here says I need one clue on the bottom right. I need that clue icon in order to get a evidence card, which is represented by the question mark on the top right. So how could I do that? I could sacrifice another card from the hunted row to get that icon. So here I've got that magnifying glass. I can sacrifice that magnifying glass to pay for this magnifying glass to acquire the question mark, which is one evidence card. So the evidence cards, maybe we'll move on to that next, are the ways that you're going to progress in the game. You need to find enough evidence to be able to find out what the big trouble is in Wode Ridge and then solve that. And so when I acquire evidence cards, I'll flip one over, and no matter what it is, I get to pick where I put it. So this is some radio waves. We listen in and we discover something. And I can put it anywhere on this evidence board except for the last row, or the last 2 rows. So maybe I'll put it here. Why does it matter where I put it? Well, as if I acquired another evidence card, when I place that, I can still place it anywhere on the board, but if I want to place it in this row or this row, it has to have an icon matching to the left or to the right. So in this case, it doesn't, so I couldn't even match it up there. But what I could do is I could put it below, because you don't have to match anything to put one below. Once you fill in a row of the evidence board, that's when you get to refer to the adventure book. And what happens is you add up the numbers on the evidence card. So in this case, a 2 and a 4 is a 6. Now I would have to go to the adventure book and locate the location that I'm in, which is a cemetery, in the adventure book, and refer to entry 6. So it creates a very randomized lookup process so you can see what's going to happen to you. So if I go to the cemetery, we'll look for the cemetery, the old manor, it's in green writing, the fairgrounds, the high school, the forest, where is that cemetery? The mall, the cemetery, and then I would go to entry number 6. So in this case, it's the shallow grave, and there'll be a little story to read about what happened when we went to the cemetery and discovered the shallow grave, and then some benefit or consequences. So in this case, I could either A, dig the person out, lose a time to draw an ally card, or B, keep moving. So let's say I wanted to dig the person out in that particular scenario. It says I'd have to lose a time, which is a limited resource, but then I would draw an ally. So I'd get a free ally and put that into my row here. So this is kind of my bonus stuff that'll help me in the game. So you can see that here I could redeem this ally to get a fist token and a gear token. And I could do that right now if I wanted to. So I can redeem that, get myself a fist token in here and a gear token. And those are used, as you saw before, to help defeat things. So that is the adventure book. You'll flip through there frequently in the game as you fill in the evidence row. But in order to actually defeat the game, you need to fill in all kinds of places on your evidence row. So I could place this one here if I acquire it because the biohazard matches the biohazard. And so we're just going to bring this stack over and fill in our evidence board. Now, keep in mind that in order to fill in my evidence board, I need to find a bunch of cards that have that evidence icon in the top right. So you can see there the question mark. And some cards, like Discover, we'll just bring a couple of the clues are the easy ones to acquire. Discovers are a bit harder. And Discovery, you can actually get 2 cards at once. And so I want to keep on putting cards in a row. See, this one can match that one. And as I acquire all of these, I will be able to solve problems. Now, it doesn't matter if it's on the top or bottom, as long as an icon on the left matches an icon on the right. It can go in the same, it can go adjacent. And so here, biohazard is legal. So I'd keep doing that until I can fill in my whole row with clues. But I'm making it look pretty easy here. It is a bit harder than I make it look because you have to earn all of those by solving certain things in the hunted deck. But we'll just try to fill this in as though I solved all these problems and I found a tooth and I found top secret files and I found the magnetic field. I remember that from season 1, I think. So that tape can be adjacent to that tape. And then once we have the first 4 rows completely filled in, technically I shouldn't have been able to fill in those yet. That's not allowed to go there. Sometimes you'll get evidence that you can't match, and you can take a turn to adjust. So if I wanted to reshift these around, I could, or I could just keep searching for evidence until I can find evidence that matches. Like this one here could fit there, and then you're allowed to fill in the last row. It's not until you have the entire last row filled in that you will be able to face the big bad guy. So I might fill in my evidence board like that, and you'll see even though I filled out the evidence board, there's still 5 more remaining. So you don't have to use every evidence card to solve the game. Once you have gone through all the clues and solved the evidence, then you're going to be figuring out what boss you fight. And that boss will be random, or not, semi-randomly determined by adding up the numbers on the last evidence row and then finding that numbered boss card. So for example, 1, 2, 3, plus 4 is 6. I would be fighting the 5 to 6 card in this case, which is Mr. Snips. Now, before I tell you how we would defeat Mr. Snips, I do want to talk a bit about the other side. So let me just group all these back together. So there have been many times in the game where when you face trouble, one of the things that you may face is a portal. And that portal icon will send us to the other side. When we go to the other side, we actually flip our entire deck over, and now we actually have to face the green side of the cards, which are a bit more dangerous, and I think will trigger things more often. Amos Wode happens to be on the other side. Or you might be able to rescue people from the other side. Very thematic. Very similar to the other side of the deck. Other side, pun intended. You still use the icons the same and trigger the stuff on the bottom right and the bottom or top right the same. It just means they interact in a bit different ways. So you'll jump from the other side to the normal side frequently in the game, going through portals. And I'm not sure if one side is more powerful than the other. I think the green side is more dangerous, but I think both of you will help you progress through the game regardless. So that's the other side, but it doesn't change the fact that I need to be finding things like discovery and clues to get that evidence to fill up my board. But along the way, I will often face encounters or other trouble cards. For example, Mr. Keating, and I'll have to defeat him many, many times. If I don't, I'll lose a heart, or I'll lose some time, or both. And you will continuously do things that will cause you to lose time and lose hearts in the game. I obviously skimming over that. That's just how to play, but you need to understand that those will diminish over time and cause you great frustration and anxiety. But then once you get to the final boss that you happen to face, and again, there's several of them, you have to go through a sequence of challenges, and they're going to cause you damage as well. So for example, I have to find this gear icon, a talk icon, a bike icon, and then another sequence of icons and another icon. And exactly how to defeat him, each of these bosses, is going to be outlined in the at the end of the guide here. Here, let me just skip to the page 49. So we talk about the different enemies here. So if we're looking at Mr. Snips the Clown, there's a nice little story about him. Then you draw the Mr. Snips card and you have to face his encounter. And the rulebook clearly defines if there's anything specific to those cards. All right, so that's kind of a long explanation of how to play Hunted Wode Ridge. It really is very dynamic. You're constantly making decisions about what dice to use, how many dice to use, if you're going to rest and use time to replenish a certain amount of dice or a heart, or if you can find a way to get a regroup card, which will help you recover your allies. You have to always pay attention to what location you're in, and acquire evidence, acquire tokens, and eventually fight the big bad guy at the end in order to win a game of Wode Ridge. So I think this will be a cool addition to any solo game collection. And if you have any interest in the TV show it's kind of based on, even better. And if you play the other Hunted or other games by Gabe Barrett, you'll know he puts a lot of time and effort into the creation of these. So thank you for watching and have a great day.